Welcome, Wildcats, to the Weber State Weekly Men's Hoop Show, a member of the Big Sky Podcast Network. Tonight, I'm your host, a man who has only won a fight with his siblings once, and that time I got both my brothers in a headlock, and I'll never let them forget it, Sean Lewis. On the show today, a man who is punished for an entire year for fighting with the siblings, Dustin Chapman.
Yep, that's right. Sisters, I only have sisters, so we got in a fight, got the Nintendo taken away. It was put right in the hallway between all of our rooms, and it sat there for an entire year. My dad knows how to send a message.
An entire year. That must have been insufferable.
Entire
All right.
year.
On tonight's show, we're going to recap the week that was against the Aggies and the Cougars. We're going to play a game called Buy or Sell, and we're just going to chat and just find out where this team is at mentally and what the conference season will look like moving forward. But first, subscribe, follow everything. Meet us on Twitter, on the Instagram. We have a Patreon. And of course, tell all your friends to follow and like and listen to the podcast as we talk about the Weber State Wildcats on a weekly basis. So let's start off tonight, Chappie, with just your overall thoughts of the past weekend and the games against Utah State and BYU.
Well, it was fun. It was fun to see a lot of people out at the Event Center. But obviously not the results you wanted. I felt better about it's funny. I felt better about the BYU game at the end of the game than I did the Utah State game. The Utah State game, to me, just felt like we were not in it. Like, we got down early.
There's a lot of truth to that.
We got down early, and it felt like the whole night we were down by 15, and that was just what it was. BYU, we were up early. We came back and tied it, a third away through the second half before things kind of got away. But it's interesting. Like I said, I felt better about the BYU game, but we lost by a bigger margin than we did the Utah State game, which just felt like it was out of reach.
But a lot of that margin was garbage time in the second half. I mean, they were within 10 for pretty much most of the game. And really, when you had that chance to tie it, or when they did tie it the second half, you felt like momentum was swinging, and then BYU goes on an 8-0 run immediately following that killed that momentum, and then they expanded the lead after that. So I agree with you that I kind of felt better. I thought the team played with a little bit more fire and a little bit more attention and detail against the Cougs. But I think it's easy to say for all the fans that we were disappointed. These two losses and adding the loss to Washington State a week ago just takes the shine off that 8-0 run to start the season. And we played some tough teams during that 8-0 run, but gosh, these three losses just make you feel like we're starting all over with the team. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we knew coming out when they started 8-0 and going into Washington State, we were all saying here on the show that it was going to be, we were going to figure out how good they really were. And I mean, we did. we found out. We have one more chance to find out how good they are. I mean, they're tough stretch of games, not counting our friends from Maine, Fort Kent, excluding them. The tough stretch
the
of
little
games,
sisters of the poor,
right? The non-NAIA.
The USU. We've milked that one enough.
Love it. It's my favorite. Anyway, okay, never mind. It's a kid from Layton Christian doing it in Maine. Anyway, get that family on the show. But going from Washington State to Utah State to BYU and to Fresno State, that is the part of the schedule. I mean, and after Fresno State, we go into conference play with the infamous Montana Roadie to start. So
that's correct.
Yeah, now, so we had to figure out how good they were, and we're figuring it out. We still have one more chance to answer how good we are.
To be fair, the Wildcats are 2-0 in conference play with the wins against Northern Arizona and Sacramento State, right? Or no, Portland State earlier in December. But let's start with the Utah State game a little bit. I think a lot of fans thought the sky was falling. We spotted the Aggies a 10-0 run. They ended up shooting 15 from 30 or 50% from three-point land. Do you count that to just the ball going in the hoop for the Aggies and not going in the hoop for the Wildcats? Or is there something that the Wildcats need to do
Well,
Pardon me.
it's all good. It's interesting because BYU shot pretty lights out too. Uh, and the hallmark of this Weber State team to date has been the defense. And
Perimeter 3-point defense.
right.
Always one of the top teams in the country in that.
Yes, and I even, my father-in-law was at the game with me on Saturday night, and I was singling out many possessions late in the first half and into the second half where I look at them like Weber State's playing great defense right now, and they were playing really good defense. For they kept BYU and Utah State both kept finding open guys that kept hitting threes, and Weber State did not hit the threes. And that's a separate topic that I'm sure we'll get into, but that's exactly what happened.
There's hints of Jim Boylan there. The ball didn't go in the hoop.
Right. Right.
I here's my takeaway from both games, and I don't know that this is accurate. I don't know that I can quantify with stats, but it sure felt like in both games the Wildcat defense was pretty strong for the first 30 seconds, right? And they were getting guys late in the shot clock,
Yes.
crazy shots that just seemed to go in. We had the Ashworth kid from Utah
Stephen
State,
Ashworth. That's right. A
Stephen
career
Ashworth,
high.
shot 7-11. He was averaging 6.6 points a game coming in against the Wildcats, and ended up with, I think he had 26
Yep.
in that game. So, and a lot of those shots were just crazy shots that just magically found the basket. The other thing that came in is second chance opportunities. In both games for me, this was something that it was we'd get the initial defense, the ball would go up, and then whether it was the Cougs or the Ags, they'd get a rebound, and they'd have a second chance to put the ball in the hoop, and they'd get 2 points off of that. There's so many times that we had the initial stop, but then couldn't get the rebound. So does this go back to rebounding as an issue for the Wildcats? We've talked about this before. Coach Ray has mentioned that he wants rebounding by committee. Is the rebounding an issue? And I think if we look at both games, we were out rebounded pretty soundly by both of these teams.
The rebounding thing is interesting to me. In fact, the play of our bigs is interesting to me. It's something that I don't understand what they're trying to do. Is Coach Ray playing small to match to try to outspeed guys? I mean, BYU is always, and Utah State, they're going to outsize Weber State almost always, right? They have more bigger guys, but I don't necessarily feel like that's the case right now today with the roster that we have. But something is going on with our center play. I mean, the last game, it's like we've had a different center start every night for the last 2 weeks. Okay, it was Cody Carlson, and it was
I think we have.
Yeah, it's been Michael Kozak started against Utah State. Like, it's been a different starter. And going into the season and last season, we felt like we had a lot of big men, which we do, but they're not playing, right? Like, Cody Carlson hasn't seen, I don't think he saw any time against BYU, and he saw maybe extremely limited action against Utah State. So something's going on there that I'm not overly. I don't understand enough to know if Coach Ray's trying to play small and do it or whatever. But I mean, that's the reason we're getting out rebounded. I mean, Dylan Jones can out rebound. He can Paul Millsap the heck out of it and out rebound a lot of guys. But you still have to have a center in there against those types of teams. In Big Sky play, I don't know that it's that big of an issue because Big Sky centers are not as athletic as BYU and Utah State centers. But yeah, it's been a problem to this point.
Well, let's just put some facts behind this. Dylan Jones had 11 rebounds in each game, by far the leader on the team in both contests. But to your point about minutes, I'm going to look at the bigs. We have KJ Cunningham that played 13 minutes against BYU. Dante Bassett played 6. Kozak played 4. Dyson Kohler played 24 minutes against BYU.
Dyson Kohler,
Uh,
who's getting a lot of the minutes. I wouldn't call KJ Cunningham. Is KJ Cunningham, was he a power forward? I would not. He
yeah,
doesn't
he's not the
he,
big, right?
he does not play. He's not a big. So like
Dyson got 24 against Utah State. KJ Cunningham again 18 there. Kozak with 6 and Dante Bassett with 4. I found it very interesting, Coach Ray's substitution pattern, and I think it's very clear that the Wildcats are still feeling out who their team is and what they're doing and who's going to get the minutes. But I found it interesting that Dante Bassett gets his first minutes against Utah State, plays late in the second half, gets put in very, very early in the first half against BYU, seems to have some influence on the game, but then never sees the court again. And to me, that's more interesting because I would have thought that we would have saw him against a Maine Fort Kent or something where we played some minutes to get in. I mean, this guy was heavy in the rotation last year, and now he's just gone.
yeah,
And
and we've been told he's got some injury issues and that they're overcoming. At least that's what the rumor's been. But yeah, I mean, look at minutes against BYU and compare that to Utah State. Dylan Jones had 34 minutes. Then we go down. Alex Tu, who started, had 16 minutes. Dyson Kohler has 24 minutes. Dante has 6. Michael has 4, and that's it.
and where's Cody Carlson?
Cody Carlson
Eh,
he has 0 minutes against BYU and
eh,
0 minutes against Utah State.
Well, and does that mean he's in Randy's Ray's doghouse? Is there an injury that we don't know about? What are we seeing there? We've got this depth of bigs on the roster, but
What
again, we don't have an identity of who the alpha dog in the center is.
Well, and from all the ones that we've had, I mean, Dyson Kohler is the one that's getting all the minutes. A freshman, and none of us saw that coming from our big man play coming into the season. And that's not to say that Dyson's not playing good. Like he's
playing great.
His stroke from 3 against BYU kept us in the game. He was, they both teams, and this is a little bit more on the analysis side. Both teams knew that they had to neutralize Sigu and not let him get open threes. They did that, and then Weber had to have somebody else making threes, and they weren't. Dyson was. He was making some threes, but overall, once they locked down Sigu, we didn't make a ton more threes after that.
And I'd like to talk about this. I mean, we had 2 teams that shot 60%, and if I recall, Washington State also shot higher than 60% against us from 3-point land. Is that a problem for the Wildcats? Well, I know we've already kind of mentioned
Yes.
this, but man,
Yes.
it's tough to see all these threes go down.
It is, but like you said, the thing that's weird about it is, for whatever reason, the teams are finding the open guy right near the end of the shot clock. I mean, how many times did BYU pass to the kid in the corner, and get the corner 3 off? How many times did Utah State find Ashworth open somehow and it was there? And so they're good on defense, but not for the entire shot clock. And then flip it around, and we were just part of me wants to give them a pass and say, hey, look, because we've seen them hit threes. Like, we've seen them shoot extremely well from 3 and win games there. But so part of me wants to give them a pass and say, yeah, we weren't hitting threes because these are lankier people. They weren't getting the shot. But yeah, is that really what it is? I don't know.
So against the Aggies, the Wildcats had success driving to the rim. Against the Cougars, they pretty much lived in the mid range, put up 71 points from inside the arc. If the defense can improve, I mean, I guess here's the final question on both of these games for me, Chappie. Where does the team stand in your opinion? Going into this stretch of games, we thought if we played well and we kept it close, you'd say you were top 3 in the Big Sky. If we didn't do well, and they haven't, getting blown out in all 3 of these essentially, what are we, middle of the road Big Sky? Where do you see this team moving into conference season after the tilt against Fresno on Thursday?
I actually think the tilt against Fresno on Thursday is going to tell us a lot, because Utah State's been a tournament team past couple years. I mean, playing a more middle of the road Mountain West team, to me, should tell us where we're at. I mean, I thought we would also find out where we were against Washington State. A lot of people like to cite that UU beat Washington State, and we got crushed. UU or Washington State was down 3 of their best players that night. So
Yep.
Score comparison just does not work in that case. I still feel good about the team. I feel like a couple things. I feel like Randy Ray's teams always take a little while to come together. Early
That's
season,
fair.
early season always has some struggles. It's always like there's some guys that are going to get in the doghouse and get out and going to learn some life and basketball lessons and then get them applied before conference season starts. And we're getting right about there. So I feel like they always are off to a little bit slower of a start. So I'm not down on them. I still think that we are top part of the Big Sky. I hate to push and defer, but I think that we're going to find out a lot this week against Fresno State. I think we're going to find out a lot the next week against Montana and Montana State. That's going to tell us how good we are, in my opinion.
I think you're exactly right. And let me add one other thing. To your point, Randy Ray is still making changes to the roster. The center position obviously is not defined, but this is not the time you want the team to be peaking. And yes, it sucks that we've lost 3 out of the last 4, but the fact remains that where this team needs to make its mark is in March, in 3 days in Boise. So, pardon me. I'm sorry. But 3 days in Boise in March is where this team needs to shine, and we need to be peaking later in the season, not peaking. I am disappointed. I did not like hearing "Let's Go Cougars" chants drown out the fans in the D Event Center. But it was great having 9,000 fans in the Purple Palace again. That was a great atmosphere. Lots of things that could have been better for that, winning prime among them. But I really think that this was these are good tests. But the real fact of the matter is our season started 2 weeks ago, was paused, and is going to start again on New Year's Eve. And that's against the Grizzlies and the Bobcats on that dreaded road trip. I like that we get that road trip out of the way early.
Yeah,
Both of those teams
feels like it's usually pretty late in the season. So it feels like we're usually playing Montana State to close out the season, and usually it's there. So
yeah, so I'm like you. I'm not going to make judgments on this team, but I think they've got some room to grow, and we'll go from that. So let's
one thing to
go
say.
ahead, Chuck.
One last thing that to me, and I guess to me one of the frustrating things is that, and again, I know Randy's still playing with the lineup, so we got to figure it out. But what we've said for years here is that Weber State's kryptonite is not hitting threes, right? It's always going to be that game in the Big Sky tournament where, we've been shooting lights out, and then we run up against Montana or somebody in the quarter of the semifinals, and we go cold, and we don't know what to do, right? We don't know
Yep.
how to transition or what else to do on offense besides shoot threes. And I in theory, I would think that would be different this year. It should be different this year. We should be able to take the ball inside. We should be able to do things if the three isn't going down. But the last 2 games, especially, kind of proved that wrong so far. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I hope it's not the case the whole season, because I feel like that's going to result in us getting to a Big Sky championship game and then not being able to hit threes and being done. But there were, for whatever reason, we are not able to change our offense if the three's not going. Ideally, if the three's not going, we should be working it down low and playing an inside out game or an inside game and letting the big score, or even having Kobe or having Dylan Jones. They both tried, or JJ Overton, they all 3 tried to drive to the lane quite a bit, but it was, I hate to say it, but it felt like kind of the Jarrett Harding hero ball that we saw 2 or 3 years ago that we
all despised.
that did not win us games. So if there's an improvement, to me, it's that we have to figure out how to score if the threes aren't falling, because there are going to be nights when the threes aren't falling.
Could I add one more thing to that? Utah State, top half of the Mountain West, if not top third of the Mountain West standings.
Yes.
BYU, a top 25 team coming into the Purple Palace.
Yes.
Those are the two toughest teams we will face the remainder of the season. And yeah, the losses hurt, and it's not what we wanted, but we're not going to see teams like that in January and February in the Big Sky. I think this team is built to be to win the Big Sky, and I think these losses help us get to that eventual destination. But I think we're going to see some success in the Big Sky, and the wins will keep coming. We will get back to winning. It may not be Thursday, it may not be next weekend, but we still get to play Northern Arizona and Idaho State and Southern Utah, games that we should win.
Yeah, we're going to win a lot of conference games. I don't have a doubt there. One final thought from me.
You already had your final thought, Chap. You said that last time.
That was my final thought on the games. Now it's my final thought on preseason. I don't know. I sure enjoy the in-state games. We have a very unique thing here with so many Division I schools. The in-state games are so much fun. It makes it a good preseason round robin type tournament if the schools play each other more. And I certainly wish, especially when SUU becomes that after this season, they are fun. We need to do more of that. We should have UVU on the schedule this year. We should have Utah on the schedule every year. I know that's their choice. Whatever, screw them. But the in-state game, Utah has a very, very unique thing here with the number of Division I in-state teams, and it is sure a lot more fun playing those games against your brothers and sisters than it is against UTEP and North Texas, right?
Somewhere in Dave Rose's basement is an old ochre bucket that needs to be restored to its rightful place and home, which is not Dave Rose's basement.
If we can talk Utah into pulling their heads out, I think that may happen one day, but who knows?
Who knows? All right, let's transition into buy or sell. We're going to present a couple of options to Chappie and myself, and we're going to see where we're at. So let's take this one by one. Chappie, buy or sell? The Wildcats will right the ship and beat Fresno on Thursday afternoon.
I'm buying there. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good week of practice, and everything they have learned from the past 2 weeks is hopefully going to pay off against Fresno State, they're not I wouldn't call them they're a Mountain West opponent, but I wouldn't call them an overly good Mountain West opponent.
Fair enough. I'm buying that one too. The holidays, this could go one of two ways. You're gonna have a distracted Fresno State team come in that just wants to get out of Ogden as soon as they can and get to Christmas. Same thing can happen with the Wildcats. I think the Wildcats, with their experience last week, will come in more focused. And I like the Wildcats against the Bulldogs on Thursday afternoon, 4:00 tip at the Purple Palace. Buy or sell, Chappie? The 3-point shooting troubles for the Wildcats are just a blip on the radar against two really good defensive teams.
I don't know that I would call it a blip. It's a thing. What's more than a blip? A Cessna, like it's a little plane. Like it's not a 747. It's not a UFO, but it's more than a blip. Like it's a thing, and it's been a thing for a while. Like we have to figure out how to score if we aren't hitting threes. But going back to what I said, I do give them some benefit of the doubt of just having longer guys on the court, better defensive players, better athletes. It clearly affected it. So I would call it more than a blip, not it's not taking the whole radar screen up.
So, okay. I'm selling this. I think the troubles are more ingrained than just a blip. I just think we don't have the quality 3-point shooters that we've had in past years. We don't have that dead eye guy that is just knocked down from three every time. So I think that it is more than just a blip. And I think, to your point, Randy Ray needs to, and the coaches need to get into the office and see what we can do to find different styles of offense that can help the Wildcats get together on in finding more shots. Maybe that's the mid-range game. The problem is that the 3-point is the shot du jour in all of college basketball and even in the NBA, and you can't trade twos for threes. So you got to find a way to get a balance there and improve the perimeter defense. Get back to the lockdown perimeter defense the Wildcats are known for. On that note, here's a weird transition and a weird stat. The Wildcats are currently the best shooting team in the Big Sky. Buy or sell, Chappie, that they will hold that title when the conference tournament comes around in March.
Yeah, I'm buying that as well. Our shooting is what we thought they were early in the season is what I believe they will be in conference play. It's
a Denny Green reference. I like it.
That's right. They are who we thought they were, but they're going to. The whole thing that we touted the first month of the season was if Kobe McCune's not on, Segu's going to be on. If Segu's not on, DJ's going to be on. There's too many guys that can score in there for them to not win games, and I still firmly believe that. So I do think that they are going to continue to be a good shooting team and the best shooting team in the Big Sky. We've always got better athletes than anybody else in the conference.
I tend to agree with that, and I apologize that I don't have the standings. Producer Colby put this list together for us, so I don't have the standings right in front of us. I think they can hold that title. I'll buy it, but I want to see how we do the rest of the season because shooting can be fickle sometimes. So, but I think this is a good shooting team. I just don't think we're as strong shooting from 3-point land as we've seen over the last couple weeks. All right, finally, Chappie, the Wildcats are second to last in the conference in assists. That will improve as the season goes on. Buy or sell?
Ooh. I'm going to sell this, and I don't know that it's a negative, but what Weber has done is have Segu take the ball down the court, and we've actually had Dylan Jones taking the ball up the court a lot.
Yeah.
Or Kobe McCune. And all those guys seem to like to score. So I don't know that we are when the guy that brings the ball up the court is the one that's your leading scorer most nights. That leads to less assists. So I guess I'm selling this one.
So you think they will finish lower than second to last, or second to last or lower? That's your take, is that they will continue to be at the bottom of the table in assists?
Yes.
Okay. I'm buying that they will improve because I believe Randy Ray will force them to improve, and that they will have a couple of games where we don't play hero ball and we don't when we share the ball more. The best teams in basketball right now, it's all about working the ball around the perimeter to find that open shot. We've seen that on occasion from this Wildcat team. But when they got down in both of these last three of the last 4 games, I think they get that mentality where they've got to get it all back, and they can't get it all back. It's basically every man for themselves at that point. So I think they will improve, but I don't think they get to the top of the conference. I think we're middle of the road in assists because that's where it is. But I think as the season goes on, we will improve from second to last in assists in the Big Sky.
Well, both Utah State and BYU put Weber in a position where they had to be making threes and they had to take threes, and they just weren't falling.
Yep.
Credit to the guys against BYU. They did not start slow. That is an improvement. They did not start slow. They were up and in the game. The first 10 minutes they led most of the way. So that's an improvement. But both of those teams managed to get Weber in a spot where they had to hit threes on a night where they just weren't going.
All right. Well, that's our recap of the week that was. Let's talk about the week coming up. We've got 3 games, or one game this week before the Christmas holiday. It's Fresno State coming into the Purple Palace, as we mentioned. 4:00 tip time on ESPN Plus and
4:00 tip time. That's phenomenal. That's a fun one there.
That's a get your hoops in and then go home and eat dinner with the family on Christmas Eve is what that is.
What do we call that? That's not technically a businessman special, but I mean, it may as well be, right?
I think it's in matinee pricing. I think we can
I like
easily
that.
call that a matinee. Matinee at the Palace. So we like that.
It's the skip your last meeting at work and take in the matinee price. That is exactly what that is.
Unless you're me, and because of the Christmas holidays, we get 2 days off this year because Christmas being on a Saturday.
What? Lucky we get 1 day off. What government employees?
Yeah. Stop. All right. After the Christmas break, as we mentioned earlier, we have the dreaded Montana road trip starting in Bozeman against the Montana State Bobcats, 7 p.m. On I don't have what day that is.
Thursday. Thursday the 30th.
Thursday the 30th, and then Montana, 7 p.m. On January 1. I, like most people, I'll be watching that instead of bowl games, but I understand if there's football to be watched on January 1st that would take you away from that one. But the trip to Montana State and then to Montana, both games 7 o'clock on the week following Christmas, and those will be on ESPN Plus and 103.1 The Wave. Friends, thank you so much for joining us for our recap of the men's hoops week that was. Again, you can find us at weberstateweekly@gmail.com. If you have any comments, want to contribute to the show, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/weberstateweekly, at weberstateweekly on Twitter and Instagram. Of course, we have our Patreon, patreon.com/weberstateweekly, and of course, the eternal home of Weber State Weekly, weberstateweekly.com. With that, thanks to producer Colby for getting the show ready for us, and hope everybody has a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, however you're celebrating, Wildcat fans. Let's hope that the team brings us home a victory so we can have a good taste in our mouth before we celebrate this weekend. And we'll end the show as we always do. Weber State, Weber State.
Great, great, great.
Go Wildcats.
See, we didn't even screw it up. See, because there's only 2 of us, so we couldn't.
There's only 2 of us. Yeah.
So it works. This was excellent.